If you know these 60 words, your English vocabulary is excellent. Now, we are going to start from more beginner, everyday words, and then we'll advance up to more intermediate and finally more advanced words. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Number one, bogus. 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 Do you know this word? This is an adjective. It means not genuine. So it means fake or false. The police discovered that the ID was bogus, was fake or false. She was upset when she realized the deal was completely bogus. It wasn't a real deal. It was fake. Or hopefully you would say, JForrest English isn't bogus. So this means the channel is genuine, it's real, it provides real value. So do you agree? JForrest English isn't bogus. If you agree, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's listen to some real-world examples of native speakers using this word.
And the deeper you go and the more you lie and put out these bogus press releases, the more I'll dig in.
And were called the bogus bucktails. But we'll see. They will not prove to be bogus here.
Number two, fishy. 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 Do you know this word? Well, this is a fish. And you could say the fish smells fishy. So that would be the adjective to say the fish does not smell good. It smells fishy. But listen to this example. There's something fishy about his story. Do you know how it's being used in this example? In this case, fishy is an adjective and it means suspicious or not trustworthy. For example, her explanation sounded fishy, not trustworthy. Or you could say, I knew the deal was bogus because he was fishy. He wasn't trustworthy. Now let's listen to some real-world examples.
It's gonna seem fishy if you only pick Sarah Gans for the bad example.
You might think something's fishy with this next building, but don't worry, it's meant to be that way.
But there's something fishy about this formula.
Number three, scramble. 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 Do you know this word? Well, these are scrambled eggs. And the verb to scramble can mean to mix eggs together to produce scrambled eggs. Do you like scrambled eggs? But listen to this example. If we don't scramble, we'll miss the flight. Do you know how it's being used in this case? In this example, it's a verb, and it means to move or act quickly or in a hurried, disorderly way. You could say she had to scramble to finish the project before the deadline. So she had to hurry, but it was very chaotic and disorganized. Or you could say the team scrambled to find a replacement after the speaker canceled. Now let's listen to some real-world examples.
To be a seeker is to want to scramble the self and reconstitute.
I scramble to get the ladder and the yardstick and duct tape it to a broom handle.
They scramble to latch onto the backs of passing females.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Number 4, hunch. 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 Do you know this word? This is a noun and it's a feeling or a guess based on intuition, your gut feeling, rather than known facts. For example, I had a hunch the deal was bogus. So I had this feeling inside. That is a hunch. Now notice it's a noun, so the verb here is to have a hunch. You could say she had a hunch her story was fishy, not trustworthy. Or you could say my hunches, the noun, my hunches are usually right. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
And one of the engineers on the team had a hunch.
We tested her and her hunch proved correct.
What's your, I guess, best hunch of what that content type looks like in the future?
How are you doing so far with these words? Number 5, cringe. 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 Do you know this? This is a verb, and it's to feel embarrassed or uncomfortable, often as a reaction to something awkward or unpleasant. The best way to explain this is to look at my reaction. That is to cringe when you do that. So you might say, I cringe every time I remember spilling coffee on everyone in a job interview. I think of it and I cringe. Or he cringed at the thought of having to give a speech in public. Or just thinking about that fishy guy makes me cringe. Now, as a bonus, you could also say her response was so cringe. What do you notice here? Her response was so cringe. In this case, it's an adjective, to be cringe or to be cringe-worthy. And this is the same as saying her response made me cringe. Made me cringe. This is very trendy right now. People are using cringe as an adjective. That's why I'm sharing it with you. Let's review some real-world examples.
Your messages just so she knows you're joking, because that's going to come off kind of cringe.
I cringe, though, when I'm referred to as a finger painter.
There's so many things that beginners do that make me cringe, though.
Number 6, aloof. 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 Do you know this one? This is an adjective and it means not friendly or warm. So it means distant and detached. She seemed aloof, but she's just shy. His aloof attitude made it hard to get to know him. Teachers can't come across as aloof. We can't come across as distant. We have to come across as friendly. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
We never got his transcripts, and they say he's kind of aloof.
My peers and my boss all thought I was aloof and arrogant.
I became very, very aloof and removed and was a loner.
Number 7, fluster. 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 Do you know this one? This is a verb and it's to make someone nervous, confused, or agitated. For example, she gets flustered easily when she travels. So she gets nervous, but also agitated. Or you could say the unexpected question flustered the speaker. In this case, it's an active verb in the past simple, but it's very common to use this in the passive voice and say the speaker was flustered by the unexpected question. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Darrow does manage to fluster Brian on the stand over issues of interpretation of Scripture.
Except the fluster of lost door keys, Elizabeth Bishop amusingly says in One Art.
Fluster over in the Black community.
Number 8, quirk. 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 Do you know this one? This is a noun, and it means a strange or unusual trait or characteristic of someone or something. For example, one of her quirks. So one of her strange and unusual personality traits. One of her quirks is that she always wears mismatched socks. So her socks might be 2 different styles or 2 different colors. That's her unusual or strange personality trait, her quirk. Or the house had its quirks, like doors that creaked at night. His quirky sense of humor makes him stand out. So notice here, this is a slight change because quirky is the adjective. That's fun to say, quirky. His quirky sense of humor. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
It's maybe just a weird psychological quirk of contemporary intellectuals and academics, and maybe it passes with time.
So that's sort of her funny quirk.
Kind of thought to himself, is this a one-off? Is this a quirk? Or does the sun always do this?
Number 9, trivial. 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 Do you know this? It's an adjective, and it means of little value or importance. Don't waste time on trivial matters, unimportant matters, when the deadline is approaching. Or the argument was over something so trivial, so unimportant. Now, you can also use this as a trivial problem, which is a problem that's easy to solve. But we commonly use this in the negative. For example, learning English isn't trivial. This is another way of saying learning English is difficult. It isn't trivial. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Think of these things as relatively trivial, but the memories evoked can be powerful.
It may seem like a trivial pursuit.
It's actually almost trivial that there will be gravitational waves.
Number 10, vent. 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 Do you know this one? Well, this is a vent. But listen to this example sentence. She needed to vent about her stressful day at work. Do you know what it means in this example? Well, here it's a verb, and it means to express strong negative emotions such as anger or frustration, but to do that in a forceful and uncontrolled way. For example, you might offer to your friend, call me if you need to vent about your in-laws, if you need to talk about the situation in a negative way for a long period of time. Call me if you need to vent. Or you could say, the meeting was a waste of time. The client vented about trivial matters the whole time. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
But I wanted to vent a little bit, if you will allow me.
It's healthy. That's how Europeans vent.
How many do you know so far? Let's review the final 5. Number 11, nudge. 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 Do you know this one? Well, this is to nudge. It's a verb, and it's to push someone or something, but gently, often with an elbow, and you do this to get their attention or to encourage them to do something. For example, she gave him a gentle nudge to remind him to speak up. Or he nudged the door open with his foot when his hands were full. So you don't always have to use this with an elbow, but it is the most common. How about this example? My teacher's words gave me the nudge I needed to start speaking in public. In this case, you can replace the word nudge with encouragement. The nudge I needed, the encouragement I needed. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
No curves that would nudge drivers to take it slow.
And sometimes we need a little nudge.
But isn't there a danger that even if you give them a nudge, they won't budge?
Number 12, glitch. 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 Do you know this one? It's a noun, and it's a minor problem or fault, but that causes a temporary error. And this is often used with technological problems. For example, there was a glitch in the system that caused a delay. Or the new video game still has a few glitches, a few problems or faults. The glitch in the software was fixed before the deadline. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
The critic has observed a glitch in the system.
I mean, it's, just a little glitch in the overall story.
Apologize for the technical glitch.
Number 13, posh. 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 Do you know this one? It's an adjective and it means elegant, stylish, or luxurious. They stayed at a posh hotel during their vacation. She always dresses in posh outfits for special occasions. The restaurant had a posh atmosphere and excellent service. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Luxury yachts line the marina, and posh hotels and showy cars flash up the promenade.
3 out of the 4 criminals masqueraded as posh females.
Webhooks, it's the new posh way to say call back.
Number 14, blunder. 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 Do you know this one? This is a noun and it's a careless or stupid mistake. For example, he made a huge blunder by sending the email to the wrong person. So that's a careless mistake that is easy to avoid. So that's a blunder. Or you could say the blunder, because it's a noun, the blunder cost them millions in lost revenue. Or you could say she tried to laugh off the blunder, but it was too cringeworthy. Or to sound very trendy, you can say, but it was too cringe. Remember that image of cringe. Now let's listen to some real world examples.
Was this just another La La Land blunder like at the Oscars?
Number 4, and that was a colossal blunder on his part.
See, I made the classic blunder of not peeling it first.
Number 15, clumsy. 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 Do you know this one? It's an adjective. It definitely describes me at times. It means awkward in movement or handling things, and often leading to accidents or mistakes. Remember I said, this describes me sometimes. Well, this is a true example. Because I'm clumsy, I'm not allowed to wash certain dishes. We have some dishes that are more expensive and therefore more fragile. They break easily. And I have broken many of them because I'm a little clumsy with objects. I easily drop things. So because of that, I am now not allowed to wash certain dishes. What about you? Are you clumsy at all? Or you could say, the clumsy waiter spilled coffee all over the table. Or she felt clumsy wearing high heels for the first time. Now let's listen to some real world examples.
You just said it sort of starts a little bit clumsy, you didn't know what you're doing.
There will be times where the relationship is clumsy or mishandled.
You know, this is just clumsy little baby step.
How many words did you know from that section? Share your score in the comments and let's move on to more intermediate words. Our first word, rusty. Rusty. Do you know this word? Rusty. Well, this pipe is rusty, which means it's covered in rust. But what if I said, my speaking skills are a little rusty? What does this mean? Well, in this context, rusty is an adjective, and it's a skill that isn't as good as it once was because of lack of practice. So if your English is rusty, not as good as it once was because you haven't practiced, if your English is rusty, I'm here to help. So are you ready? Are you ready? If you are, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And don't worry about taking these notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's listen to some real world examples so you can improve your listening skills and also shadow the pronunciation.
I'm very rusty.
I'm a little rusty.
Hope I'm not rusty.
Our next word, tangled. Tangled. Do you know this word? Tangled. This is an adjective. It means twisted together in a confused, untidy mass. These are some old earphones I have that I haven't used in years, and they are tangled. They are twisted together in a mass, a heap, and it's, of course, very untidy. So these are tangled. I could ask you, can you help me untangle my headphones? Now here, tangle is a verb, and I used it in the opposite meaning, untangle. So if you want to help me untangle these, then you would try to separate them into a tidy, organized cord so I can use them. Now, I also use this adjective every single day because my hair gets so tangled when it's wet. It's in a mass and it's very difficult to brush when it's wet. So I'm sure you can relate to either your cords or your hair or rope or something else getting tangled. Let's listen to some real world examples.
He became tangled in the ropes.
Tangled webs. Tangled in the sails.
Our next word, crumpled. Crumpled. Do you know this one? Crumpled. This is an adjective. It means crushed into a compact mass or folded up in an irregular way. So here's a crumpled shirt. So this shirt is crumpled. Here's a crumpled shirt I found in my husband's closet. Now, I could crumple this shirt. So right now, if I take it and I go like this, that's the verb to crumple. And this is something that you might do with a piece of paper. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
In this case, it's just a simple crumpled up piece of aluminum foil.
It's a little crumpled.
It got a little crumpled.
Next, wrinkled. Wrinkled. Do you know this one? Wrinkled. This means having small lines or folds on the surface. Remember this crumpled shirt? Well, this shirt is also very wrinkled and very stained and old. But wrinkled, that is the lines on the shirt. You can use this as a noun, wrinkles. I'm getting wrinkles, lines on my face. Or you can use this as a verb, to wrinkle. We commonly use this with our nose, to wrinkle. She wrinkled her nose at the smell. Now let's listen to some real-world examples.
Let the laundry get wrinkled and the dishes sit for a bit.
You have a few more wrinkles.
I found a wrinkle.
Our next word, flimsy. Flimsy. Do you know this one? Flimsy. This is an adjective. It means light and thin or easily destroyed. It can also mean weak or difficult to believe. For example, the chair was too flimsy to hold much weight. So the chair was very light or thin, so it was easily destroyed with weight on it. It was flimsy. You might say she gave a flimsy excuse for being late. Her excuse was weak. It wasn't easy to believe. It was flimsy. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Pretty flimsy evidence.
It looks kind of flimsy.
Some flimsy excuse?
How are you doing so far? Our next word, feisty. Feisty. Do you know this one? Feisty. This means lively, determined, and courageous. My cat was very feisty as a kitten. Like most kitten and young children, but also adults can be feisty. You could say he feistily. Notice this is an adverb. He feistily defended his opinion. He did it with a lot of strength and courage and determination. Now let's listen to some real world examples.
She's super feisty, and I like it.
feisty, strong-willed. Feisty little barmaid.
Next, savvy. Savvy. Do you know this one? Savvy. This is an adjective. It means practical knowledge and understanding. She's quite savvy about digital marketing. Or I could ask you, are you tech savvy? Do you have practical skills and knowledge and abilities with technology? Are you tech savvy? You can use this as a noun, his business savvy. So here it's a noun, it's something, his practical knowledge of business. His business savvy helped him succeed. Now let's listen to some real world examples.
He's very savvy.
She's the savvy one.
It's internet savvy and function.
Next, dull. Dull. Do you know this one? Dull. The knife on the left is dull, which means it's not sharp. But what if I said, this lesson is so dull? What does that mean? Well, here it's an adjective. It means lacking interest or excitement. Hopefully you don't think that. Hopefully you think this lesson isn't dull. It's exciting. It's engaging. Is that how you feel? If so, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And if you do think it's dull, feel free to let me know so I can improve and make them more exciting for you. Now let's listen to some real world examples.
Dull.
Not dull. You're dull.
Sounds dull.
Next, vivid. Vivid. Do you know this one? Vivid. This is an adjective. It means brightly colored or producing powerful feelings or strong, clear images in the mind. First, let's look at this example. I love the vivid colors in this painting. In this case, it means bright colors. I love the vivid colors. But you might say, I had a vivid dream last night. So here, a vivid dream means that you can remember your dream very powerfully. You remember all the details of your dream. You can use this as an adverb and say he vividly remembers his wedding day. He remembers every detail. He has a very clear mental image. Let's listen to some real world examples.
We don't know how to tell this generative story of us as vividly.
Really vivid. Like really vivid things.
Our next word, hideous. Hideous. Do you know this one? Hideous. This is an adjective. It means extremely ugly or unpleasant. You might say that hideous statue gave me vivid nightmares. So the nightmares were vivid. There was a very clear image in your mind because of the hideous statue. Or you might say, the bathroom was pink when we moved in. It was hideous. Of course, not everyone would agree with that, but maybe to you, the color pink in a bathroom is hideous. Now let's listen to some real world examples.
Is it hideous?
That's hideous.
I'm hideous.
Our next word, frugal. Frugal. Do you know this one? Frugal. This is an adjective. It means careful to use only as much money or other resources, but mainly money, as necessary. For example, Warren Buffett is a billionaire, but he's very frugal. Did you know that? He only spends a small amount of money. You might say, my parents live a frugal life. So here it describes the life, a frugal life. Let's listen to some real world examples.
So, I'm frugal.
So he's frugal. He was frugal, you know.
He was born frugal in every department.
Our next word, lavish. Lavish. Do you know this one? Lavish. This is an adjective. It means more than enough, more than necessary, more than reasonable. They're usually frugal, but their wedding was lavish. So you can imagine a very expensive wedding, expensive clothes, expensive food, expensive decorations. The wedding was lavish. Or perhaps our new office is lavish. It even has an indoor swimming pool, something you would rarely find in a corporate office. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
His rewards for loyalty are lavish.
This event has been somewhat lavish.
No big halls or lavish dinners.
Next, vigorous. Vigorous. Do you know this one? Vigorous. This is an adjective. It means strong, healthy, full of energy. He's known for his vigorous workout routines. So his workout routines are very energetic. Or she vigorously defended the company against allegations of fraud. So here, notice it's an adverb. She vigorously defended. Now let's listen to some real-world examples.
I feel vigorous.
Strong-spirited, vigorous.
Next, tenacious. Tenacious. Do you recognize this word? Tenacious. This is an adjective. It means persistent, determined, and also stubborn, but is generally a positive adjective. Her tenacious attitude helped her become fluent. Or she tenaciously, notice the adverb, she tenaciously pursued her goals. You could use this as a noun, her tenacity. Repeat after me, tenacity. Her tenacity is her greatest strength. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Brave, tenacious, spirited. She's tenacious.
He's tenacious.
Our final word, preposterous. Preposterous. Do you recognize this? Preposterous. This is an adjective. It means very silly or very stupid. That idea is preposterous. Or maybe someone says, hey, you should unsubscribe from JForrest English. And you reply and say, I'm not going to unsubscribe. That's preposterous. So that represents unsubscribing. That's preposterous. That's very silly or very stupid. Hopefully you agree with that because these lessons are not dull. If you agree, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And let's listen to some real-world examples.
That's preposterous.
It's preposterous.
It's definitely preposterous.
So how are you doing so far? Share your score from that section. And now let's move on to 15 phrasal verbs, which many students find are at the more intermediate, upper intermediate level. Remember that phrasal verbs have multiple meanings depending on context. So I'll show you the phrasal verb and then I'll give you an example sentence so you can see how that phrasal verb is being used. Our first phrasal verb, pull off. I know the team can pull it off. Pull off. Do you know this one? In this context, to pull off means to succeed in doing something difficult or unexpected. For example, getting a high mark on your IELTS is challenging, but I know you'll pull it off. So notice here, I know you'll pull it off. Here it means I know you'll succeed at getting a high mark on your IELTS. How about this one? If you have a great teacher, I know I'll pull it off. Maybe that's something you would say. I know I'll pull it off. I will be successful if I have a great teacher. And I hope I'm that great teacher for you. If you agree with that, put that's right, I'll pull it off. With Jennifer's help, put "that's right" in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's listen to some real-world examples using this phrasal verb.
Is it something you really managed to pull off, or does the Middle East really still have us kind of sucked in?
So, how did Ukraine pull off such a stunning attack?
It requires a bit of confidence to pull off.
Our next phrasal verb, take off. Sarah's online store really took off. Do you know what this means? Take off. This means to become successful or popular. For example, my YouTube channel didn't take off at first. It wasn't successful or popular at first, but I was persistent and consistent, and eventually it took off. Eventually it became successful. I could also say, and eventually I pulled it off. I pulled it off, and in this case, it represents creating and growing a successful YouTube channel. Or I could say to you, if you're consistent, your English fluency and confidence will take off. Do you agree with that? Well, put "that's right," put "that's right" in the comments. Now let's listen to some real-world examples using this phrasal verb.
Just at the point where your career is starting to take off, you're taking on seniority.
After the trial, she was able to move away to Florence, and that's where we really see her career kind of take off.
But once you look at that 10-year mark and beyond, that's where things really start to take off.
Next, put off. She put off scheduling her IELTS. Do you know what put off means? This means to delay or postpone doing something. She put off scheduling her IELTS until she mastered phrasal verbs. Now this means she'll schedule her IELTS once she masters phrasal verbs. You might say, let's put off the meeting, let's delay the meeting until after the long weekend. Or your husband or roommate might ask you, are we still cleaning out the garage this weekend? And you can say, let's put it off until winter. Let's delay it until winter. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Do you put off writing a paper until the last minute?
Just an idea being put off for a better time that never came.
Funnies, and I think it's such a waste when people just put off their vacation or travel plans.
Next, turn around. How did you turn around your online store? Do you know what this means? To turn around, this means to take a business plan or system from not successful to successful. For example, the new manager turned the marketing department around. So to turn something around, to take the marketing department from not successful to successful. Or she turned around her speaking skills by practicing speaking every day. And you can add to this and say her excellent communication skills helped her career take off, become successful. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
I'm hoping we can turn it around.
Of accommodation that has turned the business, turned it around.
Our economy in peril. We turned it around.
Our next phrasal verb, call off. Do you know why the meeting was called off? Do you know what this means? To call off, this means to cancel something that was planned or scheduled. For example, the company had to call off the conference, cancel the conference because of the hurricane. Now let's compare this sentence to one with put off. Remember, put off means delay. The company had to put off the conference because of the hurricane. Do you know the difference between these two sentences? In the first example with call off, the conference will not happen. It is canceled. But in the second example with put off, The conference will happen, but at a later date. Or you could say she called off her birthday party when she got sick. She canceled it. She didn't put it off, she called it off. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
At violence, they began to receive threats to call off their events.
After 2 hours, the Mamluks call off their attack and retreat.
So we decided to call off the wedding at the last minute.
How are you doing with these phrasal verbs so far? Our next phrasal verb, to catch up on. I spent the whole day catching up on emails. Do you know what this means? To catch up on, this means to do something that you haven't been able to do recently. For example, I need to catch up on your lessons. Maybe you say that to me or to your teacher or your piano instructor. This means you haven't been able to review the lessons recently, so now you have many lessons to review and you need to catch up on them. You need to watch all the lessons you haven't reviewed. Or you could say, this weekend, I caught up on my chores. I did all the chores I haven't been able to do because I was too busy doing other things, so I put them off. But this weekend, I caught up on them. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Anyone that wants to catch up on that part of the story can go back and watch our original interview, which they should do anyway.
Because it feels like a way to catch up on social media or read something.
Let's have this down period. Catch up on email, go home at a regular time.
Our next phrasal verb, blurt out. I can't believe I blurted that out in front of my boss. Do you know what this means? To blurt out. This is when you say something suddenly without thinking, often something that shouldn't have been said. For example, let's say you're in a meeting and you're discussing a strategy or a goal and you say, there's no way we'll pull that off. There's no way we'll be successful. And then later in the meeting, you can say, oh, why did I blurt that out? I have such a big mouth. So this is an expression, to have a big mouth. Someone who has a big mouth often says things they shouldn't say because they don't think before they speak. So people with big mouths often blurt things out. Or maybe your coworker is looking for a new job, but it was a secret. But then you say to your coworker, I accidentally blurted out that you're looking for a new job. So you said it suddenly without thinking. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Further, when girls blurt out answers without raising their hands.
One of you, so what's your story? Can you just blurt out a 30-second story?
His first reflex was not to blurt out what was going on.
Next, comb through. Do you have time to comb through this report? Do you know what this means? To comb through. And notice that B is silent. Comb. Comb through. This means to analyze or review something carefully and completely. Before you submit your CV, you should comb through it to make sure there are no errors. That's always good advice. Or, I combed through this entire textbook to prepare for my IELTS. You reviewed it entirely and completely. She spent the whole afternoon combing through old family photos to create a scrapbook. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Help NASA kind of comb through our data.
So I went back to my staff, let's comb through this.
Go comb through their website.
Next, skim through. I only had enough time to skim through the report. Do you know what this means? To skim through. This means to review something quickly without going into detail. So you can think of it as the opposite of comb through. For example, the consultant has an impressive background, but I only skimmed through his proposal. I didn't read it fully. She skimmed through the recipe to make sure she had all the ingredients. So she looked at it quickly, not fully. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Can't sort of skim through it.
And I'm just going to skim through, hit a couple of the highlights.
Read the class syllabus, skim through textbooks, and review all the materials.
Next, gloss over. The consultant glossed over the budget increase. Do you know what this means? To gloss over, this means to briefly mention something without going into detail. And you do this often to avoid discussing it thoroughly. For example, the manager glossed over the consultant's rude comment. So how could he gloss over this rude comment? Maybe he's in the middle of a meeting and he says to the consultant, who remember said something rude, he says to him, I appreciate your perspective. Anyway, let's review the upcoming conference. So he mentioned it briefly, but then he quickly moved on to something else because he didn't want to spend time reviewing that negative comment. How about this one? My brother always glosses over why his girlfriend doesn't come to family gatherings. He mentions it quickly, but then moves on to a different topic on purpose because he doesn't want to discuss it. He glosses over it. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Love this stuff, so I didn't want to gloss over anything.
In the early days, I would gloss over my family's experience.
I'll have to gloss over or omit many formal details.
Next, pan out. The speaker we wanted didn't pan out. Do you know what this means? To pan out, this means to have a successful outcome. The strategy didn't pan out. This means the strategy wasn't successful, didn't have a successful outcome. So we need to revise our approach. Or you could say to your spouse or roommate or family member, let's see how our kitchen reno pans out before we start the bathroom. Reno is short for renovation, so you're renovating your kitchen. Let's see how it pans out. Let's see how successful it is before we start another renovation. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Another reason why this learning styles theory doesn't pan out.
And in that way, in case there were any failures, in case things didn't pan out.
We're excited to see how the metrics of those pan out.
Our next phrasal verb, drift off. I think I drifted off during the presentation. Do you know what this means? To drift off. This means to gradually become less focused or to fall asleep unintentionally, not on purpose, often while engaged in another activity. Here's a real example. Sometimes I drift off when my husband starts talking about his work. Now in this case, I don't fall asleep, but I gradually stop paying attention to my husband and I start just paying attention to other things. We have another expression, my mind wanders. I drift off because my husband's work is very technical and often I don't really understand what he's saying. So I drift off. You could also say, I must have drifted off during the movie. Now, this could mean that you stopped paying attention to the movie and you started paying attention to other things, or quite likely you fell asleep during the movie and you didn't even realize that it ended. And hours later, you're asleep on your couch and the movie is over and you had no idea. You drifted off. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Listening to the sound of the ocean as you slowly drift off to sleep.
It might feel nice for a while to drift off into past memories.
Eventually, Henry began to drift off for the last time.
Next, dip into. We had to dip into our emergency fund to make payroll. Do you understand this one? To dip into, this means to spend a portion of a reserve or saving, often temporarily. So you have this reserve or saving, and if you dip into it, you take a portion, some of that money out. So this is used specifically with spending money. For example, the company had to dip into its emergency fund, so take a portion of that fund to cover the unexpected expenses. Or we had to dip into our savings to cover the cost of the car repair. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
The House had initially proposed a $2,700 payout, but couldn't muster the votes required to dip into savings to pay for it.
But there are other proposals to dip into it, one for a school loan construction fund.
And therefore, I don't need to dip into my savings.
Our next phrasal verb, pick up. I pick up a lot of English expressions by watching TV. Do you know what this means? In this context, pick up means to learn something informally or casually, often through exposure rather than instruction. So right now, you're not picking up these phrasal verbs. I'm teaching them to you. This is formal instruction. But if you're watching a TV show and you hear the speaker say a phrasal verb in speech and you learn the meaning of that phrasal verb from that TV show, you just picked up that phrasal verb, which is a great way to learn. Or maybe you have a great skill, you know how to code, and someone asks you, did you take coding classes? And you say, no, I just picked it up over the years. So you were exposed to coding and you just learned it gradually from being exposed to it. You didn't take formal classes or have formal instruction. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Turning to LinkedIn Learning more than ever to pick up new skills.
Find people with similar hobbies and pick up new interests.
It's not uncommon for humans to pick up new accents.
How about this phrasal verb, shake off? If you make a mistake, just shake it off. Do you know this one? If you're a Taylor Swift fan, you probably do. Shake off. This means to get rid of something such as a problem or mistake and move on from it. So you can imagine the problem is right here and you just shake it off, shake it off. This is commonly used in sports. The coach might say to the team, we're down 3 points, which means we're losing by 3 points. We're down 3 points. We need to shake it off and play better than ever. So this means not let the fact that we're losing affect us. We need to forget about it and play better than ever. Or you could say, I know I made a few grammar mistakes during my spoken exam, but I just shook them off and I passed, which is a great reminder that you can make mistakes and still pull it off, still be successful.
And they shake off criticism with a flip of the wig.
So my challenge is that we share and we shake off those narratives.
It had developed a reputation as the king of knockoffs, and it couldn't shake the reputation of being a copycat.
You're doing such a great job. Share your score from that section, and let's move on to our final group of advanced words. But don't worry, I'll explain all of them so you feel confident using them after this lesson. Here's how this lesson will work. You'll see a word on the screen and you'll have 5 seconds to define that word. After you'll learn the definition and pronunciation, you'll review example sentences using that word, and then you'll hear real-world native speakers using that word. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Number 1, do you know this word? Grim. Grim. Repeat after me. Grim. This is an adjective that means extremely bad, worrying, or without hope. The news about the economic downturn was grim. His expression turned grim when he heard the bad news. The weather forecast this weekend looks grim. Don't worry about writing this down because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's listen to some real-world examples of native speakers using this word.
Envisioning a totally different and less grim history or future.
We joke sometimes that, you know, with all the grim stuff I have to deal with every day, get me in a room with some young people.
stadiums like Lusail will continue to be a grim reminder that it all came at a human cost.
Number 2, do you know this one? Baffle. Baffle. Repeat after me, baffle. This is a verb and it means to result in total confusion. The results baffled the scientists. She was baffled by his decision to quit. Notice this example sentence is in the passive voice. She was baffled by his decision. This is commonly used in the passive. You could also say phrasal verbs often baffle students, just like you. But don't worry, that's why I'm here to help you learn all of these words so they don't baffle you, so you're not baffled by them. So if you agree that I can help you learn these words, put that's right in the comments. Now let's listen to some real native speakers using this word.
Entertain, provoke, and baffle audiences all over the world. But who is he?
What searchers found continues to baffle people to this day.
There's still a ton about nature's creations that baffle us to this day.
Number 3, how about this word? Demeanor. Demeanor. Repeat after me, demeanor. This is a noun. It's one's way of looking and behaving. Having a patient demeanor is an important quality for teachers. I'm sure you would agree with that. If you do, then put that's right in the comments. Despite his serious demeanor at work, he has a great sense of humor. The manager's friendly demeanor made the new employee feel welcome. Now let's listen to some real-world examples from native speakers.
His folksy charm and grandfatherly demeanor endeared him to the media and his at-home audience.
But he has this Queen's tough guy demeanor that rallies the base.
If you're a leader, your demeanor is going to carry to your team.
Number 4, do you know this word? Camaraderie or camaraderie. Notice the first pronunciation has an extra sound, comma, camaraderie. The second one just says camaraderie. Most American speakers, in my experience, say camaraderie. That's the one that I personally use. This is a noun that means mutual trust and friendship among people who spend a lot of time together. The camaraderie among the team was evident. They enjoyed the camaraderie of working together. The trip was filled with laughter and camaraderie. Now let's review some real-world examples and I'll show you both pronunciations. Camaraderie, camaraderie.
So you have that camaraderie.
And so there was a real kind of sense of camaraderie, who were working together towards the same goal.
When you're working on your own, you miss that sort of sense of camaraderie that you get when you have a team around you.
Number 5, do you know this word? Intimidating. Repeat after me, intimidating. Intimidating. This is an adjective and it means making you feel frightened or nervous. Speaking with native speakers can be intimidating. I'm sure you would agree with that, but that's again why I'm here making these videos to help you improve your English fluency so it doesn't feel intimidating, so you feel more confident. If you agree with that, well, why not put that's right in the comments. Another example, her intimidating demeanor. Remember this word, demeanor? Her intimidating demeanor made everyone uneasy. Moving to a new city alone is intimidating. Now let's listen to some real-world examples.
Working with a legend like Daniel is intimidating, but he makes everyone better.
He finds extroverts energizing, but a bit intimidating.
That being said, he is, I think, quite intimidating for many people.
Number 6, how about this word? prevalent. Prevalent. Repeat after me, prevalent. This is an adjective. It means very common, happening often, or widespread. The flu is prevalent during the winter months. Smartphones have become prevalent in today's society. They're everywhere. They're widespread. They're prevalent. Droughts are prevalent in this area. Now let's listen to some real-world examples from native speakers.
It's there, but it's not as prevalent as you think.
Let's walk through 3 of today's more prevalent theories.
The duration and technology risk that's very prevalent in 60/40 portfolios.
Number 7, do you know this one? Blatant. Repeat after me, blatant. Blatant. This is an adjective, and it's when doing a bad thing, but you're doing it intentionally or openly for everyone to see. For example, his blatant disregard for the rules got him in trouble. So he didn't follow the rules, but he did it openly in front of everyone. He wasn't trying to hide it. It's blatant that you're trying to cheat on the exam. The company was fined for blatant violations of safety regulations. Now let's hear some native speakers using this word.
You would see the blatant rainforest destruction.
Reporting, I was embarrassed by the just blatant disobeying the law.
Aside from this blatant conflict of interest lies the problem of self-censorship.
Number 8, do you know this one? Resolute. Resolute. Repeat after me, resolute. This is an adjective that means determined in character, action, or ideas. It's generally a positive thing. She remained resolute in her decision to pursue a new career. Despite the challenges, he was resolute in his goals. Her resolute attitude inspired her team to keep going. Let's hear some native speakers using this word.
We're resolute, we're determined, and your help is not required.
The resolute figure who proves that character is destiny.
It was one of those moments where you had to be resolute in what you were doing.
How are you doing with these words so far? Let's keep going with number 9. Do you know this word? Hinder. Hinder. Repeat after me. Hinder. This is a verb, and it means to limit one's ability or the development of something. His knee injury hindered his training schedule. Poor weather conditions can hinder outdoor activities. The lack of proper equipment will hinder our project. Let's hear some native speakers using this word.
Without letting the past hinder us is really key to our ability to staying alive as a company.
That promote or hinder growth.
And seems to really hinder your ability to be an inspirational leader.
Number 10, do you know this one? Obstacle. Obstacle. Repeat after me. Obstacle. This is a noun, and it's something that blocks one's way or prevents or hinders progress. Remember, hinder? So an obstacle hinders your progress. It limits it. The biggest obstacle to their success was a lack of funding. Or you might be in a meeting at work and you ask, how can we overcome these obstacles? Traffic is a major obstacle during my morning commute. Maybe that's something that you experience, an obstacle that you experience every day, traffic, and it hinders you. Let's review some example sentences from native speakers.
If there's an obstacle in the way, you find a way to clear it.
And could this person
be a possible obstacle.
This is another obstacle for BFR passenger transport, since it would only be able to travel between big coastal cities.
Number 11. Do you know this one? Circumvent. Circumvent. Repeat after me. Circumvent. This is a verb, and it's to find a way around an obstacle. So you have an obstacle, something that limits you, and if you circumvent that obstacle, you find a way around it. And you do that in a very clever way, but also in an illegal way, where you're breaking the rules, perhaps blatantly breaking the rules. For example, how did you circumvent getting a visa? So getting a visa is your obstacle, and you circumvented it. You found a way around it. But was it legal? We don't know. Here's one that definitely sounds illegal. The hacker circumvented the security system. So this is commonly used with illegal activity. They tried to circumvent the rules. Now let's hear some native speakers using this word in a real-world context.
Allowed the government to circumvent reporters' rights.
To circumvent any of these sorts of laws.
And even though it's still easy to circumvent digital copy protection, most users can't do it.
Number 12. Do you know this one? Exacerbate. Exacerbate. Repeat after me. Exacerbate. This is a verb, and this means to make a problem or bad situation or something negative even worse. For example, his actions exacerbated the situation. So the situation was already negative, and his actions made it worse, exacerbated the situation. Her comment exacerbated the conflict. The power outage exacerbated the riots. Now let's listen to some native speakers using this word.
And exacerbate small moments, turning them into fights.
Would greatly exacerbate our runaway population growth problem.
So changes to one affect and exacerbate the other, and vice versa.
Number 13. Do you know this word? Nuance. Nuance. Repeat after me. Nuance. This is a noun, and it is a subtle difference in meaning, expression, or sound. This is an excellent word to use as a language learner in any language, especially English. For example, understanding the nuances of English idioms, those small differences, those subtle differences, the nuances, can greatly improve your fluency. The nuances in pronunciation, those small differences, the nuances in pronunciation can change the meaning of words. English grammar is filled with nuances. And again, that's why I'm here to help you. So put, that's right, because I'm here to help you learn and master all the nuances of the English language. So now let's listen to this word by native speakers, and you can listen to the nuances.
Sometimes there's a shade of nuance or meaning that feels important and useful.
That eliminates all the nuance of the normal distribution.
But the answer has some nuance and can depend on where we're looking in time and space.
Number 14. Do you know this one? Disdain. Disdain. Repeat after me. Disdain. This is a noun, and it's the feeling that someone or something is unworthy of one's attention, support, or respect. Maria's disdain for her ex-husband is blatant. Remember that word, blatant? Very obvious or clear. Her disdain, her feeling that her husband is unworthy of her attention or support is blatant. He spoke about his competitor with disdain. Disdain for the new policy was evident among the employees. Let's listen to some native speakers using this word.
There is our disdain for the status quo.
The very word modesty is often met with such disdain, especially among the younger high school crowd.
Have to be paid for by the taxes so bitterly disdained by the GOP.
Number 15. Do you know this word? Pivotal. Pivotal. Repeat after me. Pivotal. This is an adjective. It means of crucial importance in relation to the development or success of something else. For example, the decision was pivotal to the company's future. He played a pivotal role in the negotiations. Her speech was a pivotal moment in the campaign. Or maybe, how about this example? JForrest English is pivotal to my English fluency. Would you agree with that? It's of crucial importance. It's extremely important. It's pivotal. I hope you would agree with that. Put that's right. Why not put that's right in the comments if you agree that it's pivotal. Now let's listen to some native speakers using this word.
The treaty marked a pivotal moment in Middle Eastern history.
That first 90 seconds is pivotal.
Play a pivotal role in the stress and well-being of a workplace.
To answer that pivotal question.
Congratulations, you did it. You added 60 new words to your vocabulary. Of course, make sure you practice all of these words. And if you want me to make another lesson just like this, put yes, put yes in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And you can keep expanding your vocabulary with this lesson right now.